Hello, this is Booker King 45 speaking. Next up on our segment is the Jetpack segment. Well, that's what I like to call it, but they're really called pods. I just like calling them jetpacks because, well, that's basically what they are. Okay. Acrobat pod. Explodes right after you fire. Blast sends your foe upwards. Umbrella pod. Hovers overhead before it explodes. Deploys 3 pods at once. Good against flyers. Wave pod. Flies quickly forward, blasts pass through walls. Use it to drive your foe out of hiding. Wall pod. It's 3 rows of horizontal blasts to keep foes at bay. Ground freeze pod. Hangs in the air until a target approaches. Scatter pods to immobilize foes. Cockroach pod G. Increases its speed when it spots the target. Deploy directly at a nearby foe. Cockroach pod H, with the same description. Twin flank pod H, or F, blah. Deploys a split pod that makes a sharp turn, good for trapping your foe. Twin flank pod G. Deploys it's just the same thing again. A satellite pod. Hangs in the air until a target approaches, good against airborne enemies. Satellite pod H. Hangs in the air, Sorry, some of these have the same description. I just don't like repeating myself. Seeker pod F. Slowly pursues foes. Deploy multiple pods to put increased pressure on your foe. Seeker pod G. Titan pod. Explodes when you fire. Though weak, it has an enormous blast radius. Jumping pod B. Rises when it reaches target, then explodes. Good against jumping foes. Same with this one. Oh, wait, this is different. Jumping pod G. Rises when it reaches target, then explodes. Its G-type blast hits grounded foes. Skywave pod. Flies overhead toward your target. Most effective against airborne foes. Sky freeze pod. Hangs in the air until its target approaches. Scatters pods to mobilize foes. Standard pod. Flies straight ahead. Blows target diagonally upward. Spider pod. Remain stationary until target approaches. Scatter pods to immobilize your foe. Spider pod G. Remain stationary until target approaches. Scatter pods to immobilize foes. Yeah, sorry. I don't know if these are repeating or anything, because I don't really pay attention much. Speed pod D. Flies quickly in a straight path. Deploy it directly at your foe. Speed pod P. Throwing pod D. Travels in a high arc. Cannot hit nearby targets. Useful at greater range. Throwing pod P. Diving pod. Homes in on its target and descends. Its strong homing is good for blocking your foe. Double wave pod. Deploys 2 split pods that emit blasts capable of clearing walls. Charge pod. Flies straight towards the foe. Hold the button down to increase blast size and power. Divide pod. Flies straight for a while, then splits. Good for direct attack and blocking escape routes. Triopod H. It explodes immediately after being deployed. Fire repeatedly at close range. Dolphin pod. Arcs toward target. Can clear walls but does not pursue foes. Dolphin pod G. Buster pod. Explodes right after you fire. Its C-type blast makes it easy to combo. Feint pod F. A fast pod that stops in front of its target. Good against ground-based foes. Feint pod G. Float pod F. Flies toward target and circles overhead. Deploys slowly, so aim carefully. Beast pod. Remains stationary until the target approaches, and then it homes in. Caboose pod C. Flies in direction opposite of your aim. Tricky to use, but its C-type blast is handy. Caboose pod T. Flies in direction opposite of your aim. Tricky to use, but its T-type blast is handy. Caboose pod X. Flies in direction opposite of your aim. Tricky to use, but its X-type blast is handy. Reflection pod. Can deploy 3 pods that travel around for a long time. Okay, here are the illegal jetpacks. Sling pod. An illegally enhanced diving pod with an X-type blast. Blast knocks foes farther. Hinjal pod. An illegally enhanced satellite pod with an enhanced G-type blast. Cleaver pod. An illegally enhanced charge pod with a special shrinking blast type. Scythe pod. An illegally enhanced divide pod. When the pods split, their angles narrow. Hadron pod. An illegally enhanced wave pod. Explodes after launch. Blast travels farther. Indigo pod. An illegally enhanced cockroach pod. Its blast has a pillar-like shape. Cerberus pod. Splits into 3 directions after a short time. Blast passes through walls. Chick pod. A slow pod with a small blast radius. Its blast is quite powerful. R's PO7 pod. A reflection pod enhanced for military purposes. Difficult to evade. Carrot pod. An illegally enhanced buster pod with an X-type blast. Powerful but poor in combos. And that's all the jetpacks. Yes, I like on the jetpacks too. I think I'm done. But I don't know if I have to check a few more things on here to see if I'm quite done. But if I am, you won't be seeing me uploading any more of these videos. Well then, see you next time.